Hi there, I'm Shane Spears and welcome to another edition of Summit Scale, beaming out to you from the beautiful city of Bath in the UK. My guest today is Debra Levitt. Debra, very warm welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Shane, and I'm really delighted to be on the show on this rather chilly, frosty morning.
Yeah, it is. It's a shock to the system, isn't it?
It is.
For those of you that don't know her, Debra's career as a project manager in blue chip companies took her around the world, leading projects across a range of industries and technologies. On leaving the corporate world to start her own business, she moved her attention to small businesses and she supports them in getting them out of overwhelm, improving productivity and getting them planning with a calm and pragmatic approach. Brilliant. She has her own podcast sharing the journeys and challenges of other business owners. Her goal, provide inspiration and show that even those we see as successful are facing or have faced the same challenges we all go through. Interviews include Penny Power, OBE, Daniel Presley, Richard Woods, James Sinclair, Amanda C. Watts, Alison Edgar and many more. Brilliant. Podcasting has turned into a real love for her and as a result changed her business direction completely. It brings together her love of technology, planning and talking. I love that. Brilliant. Debra, the title of our interview today is So You Think You Want Your Own Podcast, and we've 5 minutes for the interview. If you're ready, I'll start the clock.
I am ready, thank you.
So why do podcasts matter?
I think podcasts matter because at the moment they are everywhere. There's a real resurgence and vibrancy around the whole world of audio, not just in podcasts, but in radio and digital radio as well. And I think what people are doing is they're looking to step away from being tied to holding and looking at a screen. So, with a podcast, you can listen anywhere. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And all of the statistics, all of the things that I've been reading to date are showing that you get a much higher level of engagement and retention of people listening compared to something which is solely on a video that you have to look at. And even the stats that I've seen around video on Facebook and things like that are around, something really small, like 15 to 30 seconds attention span. Whereas I think it's 85% of podcast listeners, this was an Edison Research assessment, were listening to the whole podcast.
Yeah.
So a huge difference in retention and I think engagement.
And they can be done during other activities, driving, exercising and all that sort of thing as well, can't they?
Well, exactly. So you can be out walking the dog, as you say, driving, on the commute into work. So it just opens up a whole range of things and so many different topics as well. You can choose to be listening to things that are inspirational or, entertainment, laughing, so just really anything you want, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah. And can people make money from a podcast?
They can, but I'm quite cautious around this in terms of if people are thinking, okay, I'm going to start my podcast and voila, I've now made a living from it. Because I think it's a slow burn. You need to get actually quite a few listeners, a lot of downloads, into the thousands before it becomes worthwhile. And because all of the advertising is done on a per 1,000 downloads. And if you only have 1,000, you're talking about, I think it was like $1 or something. So you're really looking at a very slow burn if you're looking at advertising income.
Right.
But there are other ways to do it. So for example, you could have a sponsor for your show. So if you're doing something which is fairly local or has a very specific market audience, you could have somebody coming in and, just sponsoring the show, which is a more direct relationship rather than just pure advertising.
Yeah.
And then there's a number of sites. The one that I tend to know of most is Patreon, where you can actually say to people, look, if you want to donate towards my show, then, so you're getting some money and you maybe give them something extra, whether that's an early release or whether it's access to additional information. So you're essentially almost crowdfunding it, I suppose, in that way.
Yeah.
So there are different routes, but I think it's being realistic about what your expectations are if you are starting a podcast.
Yeah. And what made you start your own podcast?
I had been on a radio show, so it was a local radio show and was interviewed for that. I've always had this kind of, somewhere in the back of my mind, this desire to do voiceovers or something. And I suddenly thought, well, actually, podcasting was becoming, very visible. And I thought, well, actually, I could do my own podcast. Mm. And so I did, basically, and just decided, actually, what will I do? I'll interview business people. I speak to a lot of business people who are going through, the ups and downs and find that sometimes they're at this bottom point and they feel like they're all alone and nobody else has ever experienced this. And so I wanted to talk to people who are at different stages in their career, but who are also going, yeah, I've been there as well. You might think I'm successful, but I was here. Yeah. And just giving people that inspiration and that feeling of maybe solidarity. I'm not the only one to have gone through this.
And how did this lead to you changing your business direction?
I think I was several months into it. So I kind of had this little bit of a shock where it was, okay, I'm going to do my podcast. And I went through this very big learning curve of all of the bits that needed to go into it and all of that. And then people were starting to actually say, yes, they'd be on the podcast, which was kind of a surprise as well when this was unlike me. It was not a fully planned approach that I took to this. Yeah. So then I was putting in a lot of effort to put in, processes to manage, as you've done, Shane, that process which engages people, gets them signed up, registered. Yeah. And I realized that actually this is it's a big piece of work and it's a reason not to have a podcast. And that if I can help people to understand, one, what it actually takes to have a podcast, they can make a decision on do they have the time and money to invest in it, or do they want to actually have somebody take away that pain so that they can be the person who's engaging, talking to their audience or their interviews, but somebody else is dealing with all of the other aspects, the editing, the production, and all of those things. Yeah. And I quite like that bit of it. Yeah. So, and I also really like talking to people. My thing at the moment is I can find a podcast in anyone.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, well, you clearly know your stuff. That's brilliant, Debra. Sadly, we've come to the end of our time. Folks, for more resources, check out Debra's website, www.bridgeroadconsultants.com/time-is-now for the podcast. Brilliant. Really brilliant, Debra. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane.
Thanks for checking out our Summit Scale podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate us and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And if you want to learn more about the work we do or are looking for a load of free resources to help with scaling your business, check out our website, www.summitleader.com.